Yeah, so we are connected on Facebook Live.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. We welcome all to this session on lessons from Krishna Leela. Our speaker for today, Shri Prema Rāsa Dāsa, His Grace Prema Rāsa Dāsa Prabhuji. A brief introduction. He is a disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. He has a master's degree in aerospace engineering from University of Florida. He got connected to ISKCON, Gainesville Temple, where he shared the knowledge of Gita with students. Later, he moved to Mumbai and got connected to ISKCON Chapati. He has been ardently practicing bhakti for about 15 years, and he's a very scholarly devotee who regularly reads Srila Prabhupada's books and those by other Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas. Prabhuji conducts online classes to systematically educate and guide devotees in the path of bhakti. He has delivered lectures on Nectar of Instructions, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and also numerous festival classes. He has the unique distinction of being among the world's top 3 Srimad Bhagavatam distributors consistently for the last 6 years. He has been guiding many devotees from different parts of the world along with his, and also he's executing his household duties very responsibly. Apart from this, he's also a successful businessman and author of a very wonderful book by the name titled 20 Plus Must Know Facts About Hinduism. So we welcome His Grace Prema Rāsa Dāsa Prabhuji. And today's topic, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, today's topic is the disappearance of Yadu Dynasty. This is part 2 of the lecture. Part 1 has already been given by Prabhuji. There is a lot more to share. So we are very eagerly waiting for this. Hare
Krishna. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. And whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to do is all because of the mercy of great souls, the Gurujan in our Sampradaya. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnanam Jalashalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktananda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so this topic of the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, it's a very mysterious one, and it is also very commonly misunderstood because people are not aware of the actual reasons for the disappearance of the Yadu dynasty as well as Lord Krishna. Some people think that just like we disappear from this world, like we leave our body. Similarly, Lord Krishna also leaves the body because some people think that his body is material, and although he may have achieved a lot of wonderful activities, he may have manifested in this world, but still, actually, because he has a material body, he also disappears. He also dies, but that is not the actual fact. The Lord's body is transcendental, and similarly, the associates of the Lord, they all come from the spiritual world. So their body is full of Satchidananda Vigraha, and there's no question of material contamination in their body. It's all spiritual. Their body and their soul is one and the same. So in the last class, in the part 1, we had, I just would like to have a brief recap of what we had covered in the last class so that our audience can actually understand a few principles behind the disappearing pastimes of the Lord and his dynasty. So in the last class, what we discussed is that all the Yadu dynasty, they were, they somehow they went to Prabhas, and there they kind of tried to make fun of all the exalted Vaishnavas, all the exalted sages like Narad Muni and many others were present in that assembly. And they disguised Samba in the dress of a pregnant woman, and they just went to the sages and they tried to find out whether this particular child will be a male or a female. So what they wanted to actually understand is whether the sages, they had the knowledge or not, whether they could foresee the future, and they could give the actual prediction. So they were just trying to make some fun of the sages. And again, this was actually the will of the Supreme Lord. In the last class, we also discussed about there was a reason why Krishna actually wanted the Yadu dynasty to be destroyed, and couple of them were that there were demigods who were actually assembled in the body of the Yadus, who were eternal associates of Krishna. So they are all eternal associates of the Lord. They come down from the spiritual world, and when the Lord comes in the material world, the Yadu dynasty also comes along with the Lord. Because the spiritual also is manifested in the material world. We have Bhoma Vrindavan, and we have the Bhoma Mathura and Bhoma Dwarka. So Bhoma means the place which is manifested in this earthly realm. So when the Lord is arriving in the material world, his associates also descend from the spiritual world, and they also participate in the pastimes of the Lord, just like a dramatic actor on stage. So he will come along with all his paraphernalia, like the actor is not the only one, because he's going to have, like, for example, there is going to be a villain, there is going to be a heroine, there is going to be some people along with the entire paraphernalia. So similarly, Krishna also arrives like that in the material world, and then he displays his pastimes like a dramatic actor. So now these, when the Lord is descending, he's also asking the demigods to descend and to assist him in his pastimes. So the demigods, they actually enter the body of the eternal associates of the Lord. And couple of reasons we had shared earlier, that the Acharyas, they provide that one of the reasons why Krishna had to decide to wind up his pastimes and to withdraw his Yadu dynasty from the material vision of this world is that somehow the demigods which were assembled in the body of the Yadus, so they developed some kind of pride that we are equal in opulence as good as the Supreme Lord. Since they had taken birth in the family of the Supreme Lord, so they got some pride about it. And because of that, they started considering equal to the Supreme Lord. And because of that mentality, they started to disobey the instructions of the Supreme Lord. And they were it is said that familiarity breeds contempt. So similarly, these demigods, they actually thought themselves as good as Krishna, and that's why they started deviating from the message of Krishna, from his desires. So in order to curb that, now obviously, just because they are all had taken birth in the family of the Lord, so that's why naturally they had the opulences. That's one of the opulence of the Supreme Lord, that whoever takes birth in the family of the Supreme Lord, they also receive the same type of opulence. So the demigods, they started thinking that we are equal to Krishna, and basically what happened is they started deviating from the desires of Krishna, and at the same time, it also gave this, it basically gave rise to the concept of Mayavadism, or you can say Advaitism, oneness, that everything is one. So basically, we are also one with the Lord. So in order to curb these kind of mentalities and tendencies, the Supreme Lord decided to withdraw the entire Yadu dynasty. And at the same time, some Acharyas say that if Krishna would have left the planet and the Yadus would have been there, they would have got so intoxicated and extremely mad in separation from the Lord that they would have destroyed the entire universe. So now it seems this factor seems to be a bit hard to accept, because generally the devotees, they are very merciful to everyone, and they are like bestowing auspiciousness to the entire world. But from a different angle, we can also consider that the Yadus are also Kshatriya, and in order to so Kshatriyas are generally very passionate by nature, by their I can say by their qualities, and if they are provoked, then they can cause havoc. So similarly, because of that madness of separation from Krishna, they would have probably destroyed the entire universe. And that's why that's another reason why actually the Lord decided to wind up the pastimes and decided that the Yadu should also go back. Now, Acharya also state that basically the Lord wanted to separate the demigods from the eternal associates of the Lord. So there were, as I mentioned earlier, the Yadus, they are eternal associates of the Lord. They come from spiritual world. But then there are some jivas who are demigods, who are accepting the role of demigods, and they merge in the body of the eternal associates of the Lord. So Krishna wanted to separate them and reinstate in their actual position. So the demigod portion, they had to go back to Swarga and continue their responsibilities. And similarly, the eternal associates of the Lord had to go back to their respective abodes, like Vaikuntha or Goloka, and continue their pastimes there. So the entire thing was to kind of, separate the demigod portion and the eternal associate portion, and to reinstate them in their original positions in the spiritual world, respectively. And then Acharyas also explained that this tendency of the entire pastime where Samba is disguising himself as a pregnant woman is to indicate that, now Krishna is basically sending a message, a very strong message, a strong message that there will be in the future, in Kali Yuga, there will be devotees who will disguise themselves as exalted Vaishnavas. I mean, they may not be truly completely pure devotees, but they may act themselves like pure devotees of the Lord. So it can also give rise to different types of irreligious processes and activities. So, like according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur has also described in his book that there are 13 sects which have been deviated from the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he mentions, for example, Aula Baula, Jativedi, Sakhivadi, then Gauranga Nagari, and some of these are all different sects. So Krishna actually wanted to send a very strong message that you cannot try to imitate the activities of a pure Vaishnava or activities of the gopis. So don't try to become like a gopi. Don't try to imitate a gopi by dressing yourself as a gopi. That Sakhi Beki, that kind of sect, they do that. So generally, when you try to imitate the activities of the Lord and his pure devotees, then it gives rise to deviant sects. So in order to curb this sects, this is the message that Krishna actually wanted to give. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also came and he rejected all these kind of different deviant sects. And another strong message Krishna also wanted to establish is that irrespective of who you are, whether you are his own family member, if you offend exalted Vaishnavas, pure devotees of the Lord, then you will be destroyed with time. So this is a very straightforward message from this particular pastime, because Samba and all the other Yadavas, they had dared to offend great sages like Narada and others. That's why the entire Yadu dynasty was actually destroyed. Now, how it got destroyed, that is something that we'll see in this pastime, in today's pastime, and how Lord Krishna also disappeared, that also we'll see in today's pastime. But anyways, the thing is that so there are, the Lord is setting different examples through through one particular pastime. We can actually set out many examples, and so this is a typical example of that pastime, how Lord wanted to warn us beforehand, because Kali Yuga is going to start. So the Lord wanted to make sure that we don't get into the trap of all these things. So in order to teach lessons, the Lord actually withdrew his Yadu dynasty. Now, obviously, whenever the Lord is doing something, there are external reasons and there are internal reasons. So internal reason is that the Lord wanted to call all of the others to the spiritual world. And as I said earlier, that that's how he separated the demigod portion, and he also separated the Yadavas, the eternal associates of the Lord. So this is a brief recap of the previous class. If anyone would like to see that class in detail, then we have uploaded in our YouTube channel, Prema Rāsa Dāsa channel. You can refer to that. Okay, so coming to today's discussion about how the Yadus actually disappeared. So now Krishna was instructing Uddhava, and Uddhava left after that. So after leaving the forest, Parikshit Maharaj is connecting back now, because the 11th canto, it begins with the disappearance of the Yadu dynasty, and then it somehow it comes to the point where there is a discussion between Krishna and Uddhava, and Uddhav, there is the narration of the Uddhav Gita. Krishna is instructing Uddhava. So that's in between. But then coming back to the actual narration, Parikshit Maharaj is reminding Sukadeva Goswami that you did mention about Krishna's disappearance and the Yadu's disappearance from this world. So the first thing he's asking is that after Uddhava leaves the forest, then what does the Lord do? Because, yeah.
Prabhuji, I have one query. Uddhava was also of the Yadu dynasty, correct?
Yeah.
So, but he was still there. He didn't he was not sent back by Lord.
Yeah,
And all the others, when you think he wound up the Yadu dynasty, Lord Krishna, so that is referring to only those Yadus who had developed the pride, only they were sent back.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So we will answer all these questions when we go through the past time and when we go through the commentaries of the Acharyas. Yeah, so now, so Parikshit Maharaj asking Sukadeva Goswami that how does the Lord leave this material world? The best of the Yadus, how is it possible that he leaves this material world? How does he leave his body, right? So that's a second question that he is asking to Sukadeva Goswami, and then Sukadeva Goswami starts narrating what happened exactly. So he says that Krishna, as soon as the sages cursed the this dynasty, the Yadu dynasty, because of the mischief done by Samba and others, the young Yadu dynasty, because they had teased the sages, so they were cursed. They were cursed by the sages, and after the curse, so Krishna knew about the curse, and it was obviously his own free will and desire that he sanctioned all these events. So then Krishna, what he did, he went, he went to Dwarka, and then he saw a lot of terrible omens and negative signs all around his palace. So because of that, he immediately addressed his assembly in the Sudharma hall. He called all of the Yadu dynasty in the Sudharma hall, and then he addressed them, and he told them that what we have to do now immediately, there are a lot of terrible signs here. So we must leave this place immediately, except the elder people, except the women, and except the children. We should all move to Prabhas, and they all should be sent to Shankodara Kshetra. Now this Shankodara Kshetra, according to the recent time, it is called as Bet Dwarka. Okay, so the women, the children, and all the elderly people, the old people, they all went to Shankodara by the instruction of Krishna. And Krishna told all the other Yadu dynasty that we should all go to Prabhas, so that we could perform austerities, and we could also try to please the Brahmanas, the cows, the demigods. So if we worship them, and if we perform some rituals, and if we somehow please them, then by their blessings, by their mercy, we'll be able to counteract the curse which is given by the sages. So this is something that was suggested by the Lord, and all the Yadus, they agreed to it. So they all went by boat to Prabhas Kshetra. Now from Dwarka to Prabhas is basically, you can say, it is known as Somnath, which is quite close to each other. So from Dwarka, they went to boat. They went through the boat to Prabhas Kshetra, and just few kilometers from the Somnath temple, there is a place where actually the entire Yadu dynasty, they fought with each other, and they all went away. They all disappeared. And there is also one particular place where Krishna was sitting under a peepal tree, where he was also shot, and then he also left his body from that place. So these places are all there in Prabhas Kshetra. So anyway, so now they all agreed, and they all went to Prabhas, and they started performing all the ritual activities. They started fasting, and they also tried to please all the demigods, cows, and brahmanas, and they started giving charity to them. So somehow all the rituals, they were complete. They were completely performed properly, and everything was fine. But then suddenly, what happened is, by providence, they somehow came across a beverage called Mayrika beverage, and they started drinking it. So this beverage is highly intoxicating in nature. So now when when Sukadeva Goswami says that by providence, obviously we can understand it was actually the will of the Supreme Lord and it was sanctioned by him. So although Krishna is giving some counter action in order to counteract the curse, but still now see you can understand that how events are unfolding. So in spite of that remedy to counteract the curse, everything is properly done. Okay, all the rituals have been performed perfectly. The demigods have been pleased. Everything is done properly. But now somehow by the will of providence, and it's a very important term also, the will of providence, because you'll see later how this rituals that they performed, it was actually sufficient enough for them to counteract the curse, and they did counteract the curse also. So now whatever I'll be describing, it is going to be, you can say that it's a different angle of vision, and we'll come to that also later because there are many insightful commentaries by our Acharyas also. So we'll come to that. So now, so they started drinking this beverage and they got completely intoxicated. Because of that, everyone started developing some pride and they become very arrogant in their dealings. So as soon as they became arrogant, a great quarrel rose amongst them. And because of this quarrel, they started hitting each other. They became very violent. So what they did, they picked up their bows, arrows, then swords, lances, clubs, mace, everything that they had, and they started attacking each other violently. Okay, and then they also started riding on horses, then mules, donkeys, camels, and not just that, but even they started riding on humans, and they attempted to attack each other very violently. So what happened is all these acts of violence, it got intensified, and because they used everything in order to attack each other, so after a period of time all their weapons got over. So now in the last class we had also discussed how Ugrasen Maharaj, he had ordered Samba to somehow crush the iron club that was found inside the inside Samba's belly, because he had disguised it as a pregnant woman. So when the cloth was opened, the sages had cursed Samba that what you feel that this whatever disguise you are showing me, whatever form of disguisement you are showing, that will be the actual cause of the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, and it will turn into an iron club. So when Samba his clothing was uncovered, it was found that his belly had kind of given birth to an iron club, and this iron club was actually responsible for the destruction of the entire Yadu dynasty. So when all these events were brought before Ugrasen Maharaj, he ordered Samba and others to immediately crush the iron club, mash it down, and to throw it in the river. So they did that, but then when the water reached the shore of the ocean, so there was one particular iron lump which was separated from the rest of the iron powder that was crushed, and this iron lump along with the iron powder was actually thrown into the sea. And then later on what happened is the iron powder actually came to the shore of the ocean and it grew into the form of stocking canes. Okay, and the remaining iron which was remaining, that was actually discovered by Jara the hunter. So the hunter actually had killed a fish, and the fish had swallowed that iron lump. So after killing the fish and removing the flesh of the fish, Jara found the iron club inside the body of the fish, and through that iron club, Jara actually fashioned an arrow, he fashioned an arrow from that, and then that was actually later on it was used in order to pierce the foot of Krishna. So we'll come to that later. But what happened is, so as I was sharing that all the weapons of the Yadus got over, so then they started picking up the canes, which were obviously the result of the iron pieces. So it had grown in the form of canes. So now they started picking up, and immediately as soon as they picked up the canes, it all started transforming itself into iron clubs, very, very hard as thunderbolts. They were immediately transformed into iron clubs which were as hard as thunderbolts. So with that, they started hitting each other. And as soon as this started, so immediately Krishna intervened and he tried to stop them. But then they were so intoxicated, they couldn't even actually recognize that, he's actually our Supreme Lord. And they thought that, okay, Krishna is also like us. So they started attacking Krishna also. And then after some time, Balram also came. And instead of seeing Balram as their well-wisher, they started thinking that he's actually our enemy. So what was happening is that friends were killing friends, then sons were killing their parents, sons were killing their fathers, then uncles were killing their nephews. I mean, they were all attacking each other. And personal enmity also got aroused in this. So basically, Pradyumna was attacking Samba, then Akrura was attacking Kunti Bhoja, and then so similar many other Yadu dynasties, they were actually attacking each other. So in that way, they destroyed each other. Practically, they destroyed each other. And then when Balram also entered, so they thought that he's an enemy. So they all ran to attack Balram also. And because of that, Krishna and Balram both became very angry. So then they moved inside the quarrel. Somehow they kind of dodged everyone and they moved within the entire quarrel, and then they start hitting all the Yadus. So that's how the entire Yadu dynasty actually got destroyed. Everyone was killed through that, so it is mentioned that just like, in a forest, a small spark can actually ignite a fire in the forest by the friction of the bamboos. So similarly, a small thing actually ignited a huge fire, and the entire fire consumed the Yadu dynasty. So after this thing happened, what he did is he went to the shore of the ocean, and then he started meditating on himself. And then he just in that meditation, he also merged himself, and then he actually disappeared from that place. So Krishna saw that, and when Krishna saw that, he actually kind of understood that Balramji left this world. And then Krishna sat under the shelter of a peepal tree with his left foot over the right foot. So you remember, how Krishna was shot by Jara, and how his left foot was actually on the top of the right foot. And then Jara, so now it is very interesting that in the midst of all this, suddenly Jara came, and he was actually hunting. He was trying to hunt, and he saw the feet of Krishna, and he felt that this is actually the face of a deer. So from a distance, he actually shot the arrow. And as I said, that this arrow, it was actually fashioned from the iron lump. Okay, so immediately it actually pierced the feet of the Lord. And then after traveling some distance, he actually understood that this is the Supreme Lord, because he saw the Lord in his forearm form. And as soon as he realized that I have shot the Lord instead of deer, he immediately begged for forgiveness, and he prayed for the mercy of the Lord. And the Lord told him that actually this is not your fault. It was my desire. It was my will. And somehow after that, he sent Jara back to the spiritual world. So he invoked his celestial airplane from the spiritual world, and then Jara sat inside the airplane, and then he went back to the spiritual world. So this is about Jara. Now what happens is Daruka, now in the midst of all, Daruka is actually searching for the Lord, and he's unable to find the Lord. So he's like really very anxious and very concerned about the Lord. And so just like on a moonless night, people, they cannot find the way and they are wandering. So similarly, Daruka also, when he saw the Lord, he was like, before seeing the Lord, he's not able to find the Lord. And then he starts smelling the aroma of tulsi leaves, which are offered to the feet of the Lord. Okay, so by that smelling, he could understand that the Lord is sitting here. So he goes and he finds the Lord. Now what he's seeing is a very beautiful view. So he's seeing that the Lord is smiling. He's in his transcendental position. He's forearm form, and then all the beautiful ornaments of the body, everything is described by Sukadeva Goswami. And the Lord is also smiling. It's very interesting, how the Lord is smiling after the entire Yadu dynasty is destroyed. So that's another transcendental aspect of the Lord. And then Daruka also sees that the chariot of the Lord, it is rising up in the sky, and the weapons of the Lord also rising in the sky, and the emblem, the flag with the emblem of Hanuman, that is also simultaneously rising up in the sky. So basically what he's seeing is that he does understand one thing, that the Lord is about to leave now, and all these paraphernalia of the Lord, they are now going back to the spiritual world. So he does realize that, because he's a pure devotee of the Lord. So then Daruka, the Lord is giving some instruction to Daruka. He tells him that what you now have to do is, you have to go to Dwarka and you have to explain the situation, what happened to the Yadu dynasty, how they were destroyed, and what is my present condition, and what happened to Balram. You go and tell them. And once I leave this planet, the entire Dwarka will be surrounded by ocean from all sides, and it will be consumed. Okay. So Daruka, then he circumambulates the Lord 3 times, and then he also offers his obeisances a couple of times, and then he goes to execute the order of the Lord. So this is the end of the chapter number 30th of the 11th canto, where the dynasty of the Yadus has been described, how actually they were destroyed by this phenomena. So you have any questions, or we'll now go through comments of the Acharyas for this particular chapter. And before that, if you have any questions, you can share, or maybe we can go through
for the benefit of the Prabhuji, for the benefit of the listeners, if you can give some brief idea about who's Daruka, this personality Daruka who's here.
Daruka is the chariot driver of Krishna. Yeah. So. Yeah. Okay. So he's also descending from the spiritual world along, because as I said, that when Krishna is descending, so all his associates. So the chariot driver of Krishna also descends, and Daruka is one of. So Krishna does tell him that you have to be fixed in knowledge about me, and you have to be fixed in devotion to me, and you should not be bewildered by this pastime of mine, because you should understand that this entire thing is an illusory energy of mine. So he does inform Daruka like that, because the Lord also knows that he's my pure devotee, so he will be able to understand these things. Okay. So any other question? Should we go ahead with the commentary of the Acharyas for this particular chapter?
Yeah, some more questions, but I think that we can discuss that after you complete the full Leela. Then we can
that will be more relevant. Okay, so now it's very interesting that the Lord is also trying to counteract the curse, right? So this is one insight given by the Acharya, that Krishna is also acting like a human being. That's why many people, they misconstrue the pastimes of the Lord, because they think that Krishna is an ordinary human being. But this is something that I've already stated in the previous class also, that it is not possible for. See, now one way what we have discussed is that Krishna is setting an example that no matter whoever you are, if you offend great Vaishnavas, you will be there will be consequence for that, and you have to repay the consequence. Okay. But now from another angle, there is another message and lesson. And the Acharyas, they state that actually it is not possible for Narada or any other sage or any other devotee to curse the dynasty of Krishna. It is not possible, because they are all family members of Krishna. So in one sense, all these Vaishnavas, they are exalted Vaishnavas. All these family members of Krishna, they are actually pure devotees of the Lord. And they are much beyond the sages also in terms of their prema with the Lord, in terms of their relationship. So it is not possible for any devotee of a lower stature to curse a devotee of a higher stature. Okay. So no one had the power to curse. See, that's why actually in the previous class, all these reasonings were mentioned also, that why the Lord himself is deciding to withdraw the Yadu dynasty, because he knows that no one in this universe can actually cause any harm to them. No one can be a cause of destruction for them. So it is only I who can actually do this. Okay. So that's one thing that we have to learn. It's not possible for anyone to actually curse the dynasty of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so now Vishwanath Thakur says again, which I mentioned, that the Lord had some Devta portions of the Yadus, they went to Prabhas. Okay, and he withdraws them from this world and sends them to Swarga, while his expansions, they all go to Vaikuntha. So see, what happens is, when Krishna is descending, the Vishnu Tattvas are also inside the body of Krishna because they are also merging in the body of Krishna. Like Mahavishnu is there. Then all the avatars of the Lord, all the Leela avatars, they are all inside the body of Krishna. So when Krishna is going back to his abode Goloka, Mahavishnu also separates from the body of Krishna and goes to Karnama ocean, which is the causal ocean, the borderline between the material and spiritual realm, right? And so Shirodakshai Vishnu also, he goes back to Svetadip in this material world. Like, so different avatars and the amshas of the Supreme Lord, they will go to their respective abodes, their original abodes, like that. So basically the entire pastime is to separate them and to send them to their respective positions. Okay. Okay, now Jiva Goswami explains that it's not possible for the Lord to give up his spiritual body. Yeah, so now see, it is very interesting. Actually, I forgot to mention one very important point. So when Parikshit Maharaj is asking this question to Sukadeva Goswami, that how could the Lord disappear, the best of the Yadus disappear from this material world. So after that, Sukadeva Goswami in response, he says that actually just by looking at the Lord is so attractive that when women are seeing the Lord, they do not want to divert their attention from the Lord. Okay, and he's so attractive that even enemies, just by looking at the Lord, when they are assembled in the battlefield, when enemies they see Krishna, just by seeing the beautiful form of the Lord, they achieve liberation. So how is it possible? So indirectly, Sukadeva Goswami is saying that how is it possible that the Lord could actually leave his body? It is not possible that he has a material body, and what he leaves, that is something that the Acharyas also comment. We'll go through that. But yeah, it is not possible the Lord has a material body, he has a transcendental body. Okay, so Vishwanath Thakur, so she says that it states that the Lord actually gave up a body which was dear to him. That means he gave up his dynasty, or in other words, the body of the Lord, manifested on the earth. So in this context, Vishwanath Thakur gives an example. He says that a traveler, let's say, generally we say that a traveler gave up a gold pot full of water. So this means that the traveler poured the water out of the pot because of fatigue due to the weight and carried the empty pot of gold. So what he's basically saying that he actually gave the body, means he gave up the Yadu dynasty. That was his body. And so he basically left behind a material, in the material world, he left behind a material aspect of the form of the Lord, which means the universal form of the Lord. So the universal form of the Lord is also the material aspect of the Lord. It is not spiritual in nature. So universal form is a temporary manifestation and it's a material manifestation of the Supreme Lord. It's not spiritual. So the Lord actually leaves behind a material body and he goes back in the original transcendental body. So Vishwanath Thakur explains like this, that he gave up his dynasty. That is the meaning of body, which was manifested on this earth. Now, according to Srila Sridhar Swami, the inauspicious signs in the sky was the appearance of the halo around the sun. Okay, and on the earth there were small earthquakes, and in outer space there were unnatural redness on the horizon. So these and other similar omens were impossible to counteract because they are personally arranged by Lord Krishna. So this is what we have to understand. Actually, one thing is very sure, that Krishna and his abode, they are all not different from each other. So it is not possible that any type of bad omen can actually influence the planet of the Supreme Lord, the abode of the Supreme Lord. It is not possible. So whatever omens that were visible, the terrible and dangerous omens that were visible, they were personally created by the Supreme Lord. And here Sridhar Swami is also explaining what were these signs and omens. Okay, so this is by Sridhar Swami. Then now it is very interesting in this context to read the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Thakur. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll read the commentary of the verse number 5 from 11th canto 30th chapter, and I request all the audience to very attentively hear this because it's very interesting commentary. So what Vishwanath Thakur he explains is that internally the Lord thinks as follows. So among all the persons who came to meet me from various places during the trip to Kurukshetra, Kali came unnoticed by others and spoke to me. So Kali, the manifestation of Kali Yuga. So Kali actually in disguise came when there was a meeting between the Kurus and the Vrajvasis. They had assembled in Kurukshetra, right? And that time, so the Lord is thinking that Kali was also part of it. So the Kali came and unnoticed by others and spoke to me. And Kali spoke as follows: "Oh Master, when will I take charge of the earth?" So Kali is asking the Lord that, okay, as long as you are present, there is no question of me entering. So now when I'm going to take charge? So then Krishna says, you can take charge only when my pastimes are over. After I disappear with the right given by me, Kali will pervade the earth, sorry. And however, during my present appearance, Dharma has increased to 4 legs. So we know that in Satyuga, from Satyuga till Trita Yuga, Dharma is very much standing on 4 legs, right? But at the, Satyuga, in Satyuga, Dharma is standing on 4 legs. And then from Satyuga to Kali Yuga, 1 leg is disappearing because there are a lot of injustice and immoral activities happening. So one of the leg is going to be disappearing. So in Dwapar Yuga, there are only there are, so in Satyuga 4 legs, then in Trita there are 3 legs, in Dwapara there is only 2 legs, and in Kali Yuga there will be only 1 leg, the leg of truthfulness. So during the time of Krishna's appearance and his pastimes till he departed from this world, what happened is Satyuga was reinstated in one sense. Actually, it became much more better than Satyuga also because of Krishna's personal appearance. So all 4 legs of Dharma, they were re-established by the Lord in Dwapar. So now the Lord is saying, so if Dharma is so strong, how can Kali rule? So the rule is that Kali will rule when only 1 leg of Dharma remains. So one should not say that when I disappear, then the 4 legs of Dharma will also disappear. On the logic that when the cause disappears, the effect disappears. Since the Devatas of great fame, purifiers of the whole world, remain alert. Moreover, I have destroyed the unfavorable among the population of favorable, unfavorable and neutral parties. Now, if I ascend to Vaikuntha with all the inhabitants of my abode, in sight of all persons, as Lord Ramchandra did, the favorable devotees will double in number. Those who are already intensely favorable will increase their prema 100-fold times out of great longing in prema. And those who are neutral will become devotees on seeing this extraordinary event. Dharma will thus increase. How will even a little influence of Kali be possible then? So by what method will I increase adharma in order to restrict dharma? So do you understand this? What was the Lord thinking? Are you getting it? So he was thinking that after my disappearance, there is a time for Kali Yuga to appear. So there is no, and Kali Yuga, we know that it is a place full of adharma. Okay, or at least the beginning of adharma, and then later on adharma will keep increasing. So how will I reinstate adharma? And that's why the Lord is thinking that if I perform similar type of pastime that Lord Ramchandra showed to his followers, to his devotees, and to his public in general, then what will happen? Dharma will actually increase. Those who are neutral, they will also become my devotees. So instead of dharma, instead of adharma increasing or starting in Kali Yuga, actually it will start with dharma. But the goal is not to start the Kali Yuga with dharma, it is to start with adharma. And obviously one cannot blame the Lord because it is the choice of jivas who would like to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord. So because they have performed so many impious activities in their previous lifetimes, that's why now there is a chance that they have to be assembled at a place where where adharma can flourish. And gradually they all can be destroyed at the end of Kali Yuga. So if the Lord would have disappeared like the way Lord Ramchandra, because Lord Ramchandra, what he did at the end, he took away all his associates and he showed them Vaikuntha in Ayodhya. In his, he showed everyone becoming his devotee, everyone surrendering to him, everyone going back to him in the spiritual world. Very positive framework. Like if you see that, you will feel very happy and very inspired. But by looking at Krishna's pastime, how the entire Yadu dynasty is destroyed, you will feel that, oh well, you will be bewildered by this pastime. If you have small faith in the Lord, that faith will also be shaken up by seeing this entire episode. So now, who will not be bewildered? Only those people who are devotees of the Supreme Lord. They will be protected by the Lord's illusory energy. This is what later on Krishna also mentions. So that's why the Lord decides to actually go back to the spiritual world in a very ghastly manner, in an apparently external ghastly manner. Okay. So now, so actually Vishwanath Thakur later on he says that entire thing was illusion. It never happened only. The pastime never happened only, it was just an illusion. An illusion created by the Lord, just like, for example, when we go to sleep and we are having a dream. So similarly, only for those people who are atheistic in nature and those who do not want to surrender to Lord, in order to bewilder them, they all saw this illusion. But actually this pastime did not happen only. And if you remember now, connecting back to the the statement that I made, that just by practicing all these rituals, trying to appease and please the demigods and the sages, actually what happened is they did counteract the curse. There was no question of even though the lords had sent the demigods to Prabhas, right? But these demigods also, after drinking, they all went to Swarga. There was no fight, there was no quarrel. This was all made up. This was all illusion created by the Lord in order to mislead people so that they can come in Kali Yuga and they can flourish in Adharma, like that.
So the arrow piercing Lord's feet is also an illusion, part of the illusion?
Okay, that's another good question. And we'll come to that. The Acharyas, they also answer this question. Yeah, okay. So then the Lord is saying, here is the method. I will remain as I do now in Dwarka with the Yadus who are my associates in pastimes, but will become invisible to eyes of all material people. So basically, what happened is, see, the Lord is eternally present in Mathura, Dwarka, and Vrindavan. Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwarka, the Lord is eternally present. There is no question of the Lord disappearing or leaving this body. It's just a matter like, the way the sun is setting in one place and then rising in another place, right? The sun is not destroyed. The sun is not even leaving at some place. It is just because of the rotational movements of the planets. It seems that the sun is actually setting at one place and rising at another place. So similarly, the Lord is just appearing and disappearing in the vision of the conditioned soul. For his devotees, pure devotees, the Lord is always present. So in Mathura, Dwarka, and Vrindavan, the Lord is eternally present. So here what the Lord is saying, that I will become invisible in the eyes of ordinary people, but I will always reside in Dwarka. So to my associates, I will always be visible. So what happens? He becomes invisible in Dwarka, but apparently externally he is leaving the material world and he's going back to the spiritual world. But actually the Lord eternal, there is in the second chapter, the next chapter, there is a statement by Sukdev Goswami. He says that Dwarka is actually eternal place of the Lord and he resides there eternally. So it is not possible for the Lord to disappear from that place. So now anyways, so the Devatas who are Vibhutis, such as Cupid and Kartikeya, have entered into my personal associates like Pradyumna and others. So by my power of yoga, I will withdraw them from those bodies without others noticing it. So making some fake forms for the eyes of ordinary people, which appear to be Pradyumna and others, I will have the Devatas in those bodies go to Prabhas with the other inhabitants of Dwarka and have them drink wine after meditating and giving charity, and then send them to Swarga according to their individual qualification as devotees. I, in another form, will depart for Vaikuntha with the other inhabitants of Dwarka as Lord Ramchandra did. The root forms of Krishna and his associates remain in Dwarka invisibly. So see, this is very interesting. the Lord does go back to the spiritual world, but in his Vaikuntha expansions. And in his, as Vishwanath Thakur says, that in his rooted form, he does remain in Dwarka. Okay, so
what do we understand by rooted form? What does that mean?
The root form means the actual form, the cause form, the avatari form of the Lord. So Krishna is called as the avatari, and all the others are avatars. So he's the source. Root means the source of all the other forms.
But then, Prabhuji, Krishna has never left Vrindavan, the two-handed Shyam Sundar form. So Krishna had separated when Akrurji had come to pick him up. He had separated, and Shyam Sundar Krishna continued to remain in Vrindavan. So you are saying the other Krishna who went along, that root form continued to remain in Dwarka?
Yes, exactly. So in general, because we are talking about Dwarka pastime, that's why the root form of that Dwarka form is basically Krishna in Dwarka. Now he goes outside of Dwarka, he goes to Prabhas, and then he also goes to the spiritual world. So these are all the other forms of the Lord. As mentioned by Vishwanath Thakur, he is actually going back in his Vishnu form. But in original root form, he is actually in Dwarka. Okay. Now, obviously, the Dwarka form is also the expansion of the Vrindavan form. But because we are only discussing about the Dwarka pastime of the Lord, so that's why we are saying that this is the root form, like that.
Oh.
Okay. So then Krishna says that, but I will let the common people see the influence of Maya. So they will think that the Yadus left Dwarka, went to Prabhas with the entire Yadu dynasty, and under the control of the Brahmanas curse, drank wine and gave up their bodies after killing each other. So they will think the Lord, along with Balram, giving up a human body, ascended to the spiritual abode. Thus they will say that my body was temporary, made of matter, and thinking I have a material body is a great offense. I have said, Avajananti Mahamudam, Manushim Tanum Ashritam. The fools deride me, thinking I have a material human form. The Bhagavad Gita 9.11 says that. And I have described the result for that. Mogasha Moga Karmano, Moga Jnana Vichetasa, Rakshashim Asurim Chaiva, Prakartim Mohinim Sutta. So in the 12th verse, then Krishna says that among those who cannot distinguish this truth, those who are devotees do not gain salokya, those who are karmis do not attain their material fruits, and those who are jnanis do not attain liberation. They assume the nature of rakshasas and asuras. So those who, in short, those who deride my spiritual form and they think my form is material, so they act like rakshasas and asuras. The Lord continues, if the devotees think in this way, their desire to attain me will be futile. If the karmis think in this way, they cannot attain swarg. If the jnanis think in this way, they cannot attain liberation. They become rakshasas. So some will think that Supreme Lord has a temporary body because of seeing that all others have temporary bodies. Some bodies live a long time and others a short time. Others will claim that just as the Kurus all died, Krishna died with his family at Prabhas. So by people's hearing, speaking and praising such preaching of wrong ideas by idiots who think they are learned, immediately one leg of dharma only will remain. So this is the idea. This is the thought process of the Lord, which is shared by Vishwanath Thakur. Very interesting. So just as eyes afflicted with jaundice perceive a shining white conch to be yellow, people whose minds and eyes are afflicted with Maya will perceive my departure pastimes, which are actually eternity knowledge and bliss, to be afflicted by material misfortune. They will see and conclude that I gave up my body with all associates like Pradyumna, and that the queens like Rukmini were burned in the funeral fire. So this we will also discuss in the next upcoming chapter, this particular pastime, how everyone entered the funeral fire. So not only the materialists will see this, even persons like Arjuna will see this by divine will. Sages like Vaishampayana and Parasar will describe this in their works. And Shiva, my devotee, taking birth in Kali Yuga, will plead this in a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra in order to spread Kali's influence. So persons with no intelligence repeatedly studying these sutras will explain the meaning according to that commentary. So the body of the Lord possessing unlimited powers is a subtle covering of Maya on Brahman. Thinking in this way with the idea of producing great disturbance, the Lord spoke this verse, expressing fear and meditation. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there is still the continuation of the commentary, but we'll not go into the details of that. But yeah, it's very interesting how Vishwanath Thakur is actually explaining the entire thought process of the Supreme Lord. So, yeah, this was really wonderful. Now in this particular chapter, from verse 12 to 26, there is a description of the entire, quarrel amongst the Yadu dynasty, and Vishwanath Thakur says that this is actually the opinion of others, and it is not the actual truth. So the Lord has said. So he is quoting. Srila Vishwanath Thakur quotes from the 11th canto 6th chapter, and where it is mentioned that by bathing at Prabhashetra, by offering tarpanas to the Pitras and Devtas, by feeding the worshipable Brahmanas with various delicious food stuffs, and by bestowing gifts upon them as the most suitable candidates for charity, like sowing seeds, we will certainly cross over these terrible dangers through such acts of charity, just as one can cross over a great ocean in a suitable boat. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto 6th chapter, 37 to 38. Thus, the Devtas, on the strength of the Lord's words, overcame the curse of the Brahmanas by giving charity. Drinking wine, they disappeared and ascended to Swarga. So you see how Vishwanath Thakur is quoting Shastra Praman from the 11th canto 6th chapter, and he's saying that it is very clear, because the Lord himself is saying that just by doing these activities, one will be able to easily attain the curse. So even the demigods, actually, they were able to counteract the curse just by following the instructions of the Lord. And by counteracting the curse, they also were able to drink the wine, and they then all ascended to Swarga. So this actually, that's why Vishwanath Thakur says that whatever is described from verse number 12 to verse number 26, it actually did not happen only. It's the version of some other people who are bewildered by Maya. So it is their version, but actually the actual truth is according to the Lord's version, which is an illusion. It did not happen. Yeah, okay. And then he says that the Lord versions of event starts from verse number 27. So previously the Lord said that when they will quarrel amongst themselves with eyes red because of complete intoxication from liquor, they actually will not die. The cause of their disappearance is otherwise. Only when I decide that they disappear, they will disappear spontaneously. So this is again Vishwanath Thakur quoting from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 3rd chapter and 15th verse. So there the Lord clearly stated that only when I decide, they will disappear. They will not disappear before that. Even after drinking wine, even after, it seems that they are quarreling. They are influenced by that, but this is not the case. And they cannot disappear. By the way, they cannot disappear by any ordinary means. They can only disappear when the Lord desires. So the meaning of the above verse is, when the quarrel will arise, it is not a method of killing them. That quarrel among them cannot be a cause of their death. Even beating each other with handfuls of reeds will not kill them. The quarrel and the killing seen by ordinary people are not factual. What was the cause of their destruction? It is other than killing. What is that? When I desire, they will simply disappear. That is certain. So this is how, then Vishwanath Thakur also mentions, now, coming back to your question about piercing the foot of the Lord. So see, very interesting commentary, the way they explain, or Acharyas, they are explaining this. He says that when it is mentioned in the Bhagavatam or by Sukadeva Goswami that his foot was pierced, what it actually means is, so Vishwanath Thakur explains that this means that the hunter Jara thought that he had shot a deer. Actually, this particular arrow only touched Krishna's foot, but did not pierce it. Since the Lord's limbs are eternity, knowledge, and bliss, full of bliss. Otherwise, when the hunter, in fear, placed his head on the Lord's foot, as explained in the next verse, he would have taken out the arrow. So again, Vishwanath Thakur is giving evidence from the next verse. One verse says that the Jara hunter actually pierced the foot of the Lord, but then immediately in the next verse, it's mentioned that he touched the foot of the Lord in order to pay him obeisances. So that time he did not remove the arrow from the Lord's foot. So it's an indication that actually the arrow did not pierce the body of the Lord. It just touched it, because the Lord's body is transcendental. It is made up of Satchidananda Vigraha, like that. So that answers your questions, right? About piercing the foot of the Lord. Now, another interesting thing is, according to Vishwanath Thakur, he quotes the third canto, and he says that when the sun was setting and the Yadus had killed each other in battle, the Lord sat down on the bank of Saraswati river. Then the hunter approached to kill a deer. Now see, this circumstance is also not possible. Vishwanath Thakur says this, okay, and he explains this point. He says, this is not possible. Why? Because if 560 million Yadus were suddenly killed in battle at that place, there will be a river of blood and great confusion of noise. There will be commotion. How would it be possible for the hunter to arrive there to kill the deer? How would a deer, fearful in nature, remain in that place? Therefore, this killing of the Yadus was actually false. However, the Lord made Arjuna and others believe it in order to increase the Prema in Karuna Rasa of his devotees like Yudhishthira, and in order to make them give up this world. And for others, he did this to increase the wrong philosophy so that dharma would be stifled. Actually, after the Devatas had drunk wine and disappeared, the hunter came to that place which was without sound and people. The battle was an illusion. So very nicely, Krishna Thakur explains the entire phenomena, that how is it possible that the deer can arrive at such place as well as hunter? Because 560 million Yadus, they are destroyed at one place. You can just imagine, in that population, who is going to dare to enter that place, right? Even if someone has been dead, just by seeing that ghastly act, by seeing pool of blood, who is going to enter that place? It's not possible. So Vishwanath Thakur again, he explains using logic and evidence from scriptures that it was all illusion. Okay, then now again, Vishwanath Thakur explains that though the chariot was sent to Vaikuntha, the charioteer was not sent to Vaikuntha, which means Daruka was not sent to Vaikuntha. This arrangement was made in order that Daruka would inform others of the present situation, and that Daruka, who had come from Vaikuntha, would enter into the unmanifest pastimes of Krishna in Dwarka. On seeing that in Dwarka there was increase in prema with all the eternal associates such as Uddhava. So Daruka should inform others of the Lord's condition, that he would be performing unmanifest pastimes. So this was the purpose of not actually calling Daruka back to taking him away. Actually, in one sense, he did went to Vaikuntha in his in his expanded form. Daruka also, when he is descending from the spiritual world, so he is the chariot driver of Krishna in Dwarka. But then when he is coming down to the material world, then the chariot driver of Vishnu from Vaikuntha is also coming down, and he is merging in the body of Daruk. So that portion goes back to Vaikuntha, and Daruka in his original form, he goes to Dwarka, because the Lord has given some instruction and service to him. So he goes and he performs that service. And then as he says that Krishna, he is sharing with his the Dwarkavasis that Krishna will be performing his unmanifest pastimes. Basically, this was the intention of the Lord. So this is also something nice. And then Jiva Goswami in the word 2 in the verse 49. So in the verse 49, there is a word 2. So Jiva Goswami says that it emphasizes that Daruka is eternal associate of the Lord, having descended from the spiritual world. Therefore, even though others might be bewildered by the Lord's pastime, Daruka should remain peaceful and fixed in spiritual knowledge. Yeah, so this is about the we finished the chapter 30th, the first part of this class. And so any questions or comments till now?
One more query, Prabhuji. Balramji's sons were also there in this Yadu dynasty.
Yeah,
they also Were they also involved in this fight, and they were also
Yeah,
set
the
back?
entire Yadu dynasty actually, except the old people, the women and the children. So children means, I believe they were like probably maybe less than 10 years old, or maybe less than 5 or 6 years old, because that during that period even 10 years was actually considered to be a good um, like in terms of maturity it was a good number. Like people there at the age of 10, people were really mature, so I don't think they will be called as children. But so maybe, yeah, less than 5 6 years old, they probably will be called as children. And the old people and the women, so they all were there. So now in this particular uh, Leela that I'm going to share, the passing away of Krishna. So in that, we'll see how all these remaining associates of the Lord, they had entered the funeral fire.
Uddhava was also the exception, right? He was also not sent.
Yeah, Uddhava, he so he all understood that Krishna is going to disappear now. That's why he approached Krishna in isolation, and then he asked Krishna questions. And Krishna also had him to perform some services. So he had to go to Badrika Ashram, and then he had to share the knowledge with others and all that. So that's how Uddhava was also actually an exemption to this. He was not included in this destruction. So Uddhava remained after the disappearance of the Lord. Uddhava did remain, and Daruka also remained for some service like that. Okay, so now coming to the disappearance of Lord Krishna. So what happened? Yeah, so now after instructing Daruka, so it was Krishna decided that it was time for him to live. So instantly, what happened? Brahma and Lord Shiva and all the other demigods, the Kinnaras, the Apsaras, the Siddhas, the Charanas, the Vidyadhars, Rakshasas, and they all assembled in order to witness the departure pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so now, so basically, they all appeared in the sky and they started showering flowers on the Supreme Lord, and then seeing all these demigods, the Lord was actually a bit, he became a bit shy. So what he did is actually he closed his eye, fixing his mind within himself. He started meditating on himself, and then without employing the mystic Agniya meditation in order to burn up his transcendental body, which is all attractive, Krishna entered his own abode. Now, as soon as Krishna left the earth planet, truth, religion, faithfulness, glory, and beauty immediately followed him. And then kettle drums resounded in the heavens and flowers were showered from the sky. So now most of the demigods and other higher beings led by Brahma, they could not see Lord Krishna as he was entering his own abode. Since the Lord, he did not reveal all these movements to all these demigods, but some of them did catch sight of him. Now, obviously, some of them means those who were pure, those who had love for the Lord. They could actually see the Lord entering his abode, and they were completely amazed by these pastimes of the Lord. So, see, so Sukdev Goswami says that just like an ordinary man cannot ascertain the path of a lightning bolt as it leaves the cloud, so similarly, the demigods also could not ascertain the movements of the Lord as he returned to the spiritual world. A few demigods, however, like Brahma and Shiva, they could ascertain how the Lord's mystic potency is working, and they all became very astonished. So all the demigods, they praised the Supreme Lord, and then they returned back to their planets. Now, Sukdev Goswami, he makes a very interesting point. He says that actually the Lord is like a dramatic actor. He is coming to this material world, performing some pastime with his associates, and then he departs. He winds up all the pastimes and then he will depart. Just like a magician, he will perform some magic, and then again he will create some illusion, and then he will finish that illusion by revealing the truth. So similarly, the Lord is also like a dramatic actor. He will come to the material world, perform some pastime, and then again he will wind up that pastime, and he will go back. So in this case also, the Lord's position is always the same. He is beyond karma, he is beyond guna, and he is always in his transcendental form. And then he also quotes another example. So he says that, again, in order to prove the transcendental aspect of the Supreme Lord, he gives some examples. He says that Lord Krishna, he had brought the son of his guru back from the planet of the Lord, planet of death, in the self-same body, right? Then he also protected you, Parikshit Maharaj, from the burning sensations of the Brahmastra. He also protected you. He conquered even Lord Shiva in his battle with him. And the same Lord Shiva who deals with the agents of death. And then he also sent Jara in his self-same body in the Vaikuntha. Right? So how could a personality such as the Lord be unable to protect his own self? So Sukadeva Goswami is clearly giving this evidence that Krishna is awarding liberation to the demons. He is sending back Jara in the same spiritual body. He's also bringing back the dead son of his guru. Right? So all these examples are given just to convince the audience, because Parikshit Maharaj is the pure devotee in the assembly, but then there are others who are not pure devotees. So in order to convince them, in order to make sure that they are not bewildered by these pastimes of the Supreme Lord, he's making this point that how is it not possible for the Lord to protect himself, who is the bestower of liberation to everyone? So indirectly saying that the Lord's form is transcendental, and it is not possible that the Lord can actually be killed by someone, or the dynasty of the Lord can be destroyed by anyone. So he says that, and then, so what happened? Then Daruka, now as soon as Daruka is reaching Dwarka, so he throws himself at the feet of Vasudeva and Ugrasen, and then because of his feelings, intense feelings of separation, he is constantly crying, and those tears are actually touching the feet of Vasudeva and Ugrasen, lamenting the loss of Lord Krishna. So then Daruka delivered the complete account of the total destruction of the Yadus, and upon hearing this, all the associates of the Lord who were remaining, they became deeply distraught in their hearts, and they became struck with sorrow. So feeling the overwhelming pain of separation from Krishna, they struck their own faces and they hurried to the place where their relatives lay dead. So when Devaki, Vasudeva, Rohini could not find their sons Krishna and Balram, they lost consciousness out of anguish. And because of separation from the Lord, his parents immediately gave up their lives at that very spot. And the wives of the Yadavas then climbed onto the funeral pyres, embracing their dead husbands. The wives of Lord Balram also entered the fire. Vasudeva's wife entered his particular fire, and the daughter-in-laws of Lord Hari also entered the funeral fires of their respective husbands, headed by Pradyumna, and then Rukmini and others, the wives of Krishna, they also entered this particular fire. So now, seeing all these things, Arjuna felt great distress, and he started feeling separation from the Lord. But then he also was able to console himself, because he started remembering the words spoken by Krishna to him in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Gita. Okay, and then Arjuna saw it. Okay, one particular thing I forgot to mention is that the Lord told Dwaruka that whoever is remaining, you should just hand over all of them to the protection of Arjuna, and then Arjuna will take them all to Indraprastha. So that is something that the Lord mentioned Dwaruka. So now Arjuna was also present in that particular period, and as soon as Dwarka was abandoned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ocean flooded it on all sides, sparing only the palace of the Lord. Okay, and then Arjuna also saw that the funeral rites were performed properly, and there were no remaining male members in the dynasty. So he executed the required ceremonies for each of the Yadus, one after the other. And now Sukadeva Goswami makes this very important statement, which I've already shared, that Lord Madhusudan, the Supreme Personality of God, is eternally present in Dwarka. It is the most auspicious of all auspicious places, and just by remembering it destroys all contamination. So Arjuna later on, he took all the survivors of the Yadu dynasty, the women, children, and old men, to Indraprasth, where he installed Vrajra as the ruler of the Yadus. And then hearing from Arjuna the death of their friend, Sukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit that your grandfathers established you as the maintainer of the dynasty and left to prepare for their departure from this world. Yeah, so then Sukadeva Goswami says that a person who with faith engages in chanting the glories of these pastimes and incarnation of Vishnu, the Lord of Lords, will gain liberation from all sins. And the all auspicious exploits of the all attractive incarnations of Krishna, and also the pastime we perform as child, are described in Bhagavatam in other scriptures. So anyone who clearly chants these auspicious descriptions of the pastime will attain transcendental loving service unto Lord Krishna, who is the goal of all perfect sages. So by this, we come to the end of conclusion of the disappearance of Lord Krishna also. One particular aspect that Sukadeva Goswami does bring into the picture is that the Lord also thinks, basically what he's sending a message that when I am so opulent and when I also desire to leave this world, so then what to speak of all my devotees, my followers, those who are favorable to me, they should also leave this world. They should not get attached to this world. This is a very clear message that the Lord is actually bringing out from this particular pastime, that in spite of being the Supreme Lord, he is not attached to the material world and he wants to leave the material world. So this is an important message that Sukadeva Goswami also brings out in this. Okay, so now we'll also go through some commentaries of the Acharyas. Okay, so now according to Srila Sridhar Swami, Krishna had previously answered the prayers of Lord Brahma. So if you remember, the reason Krishna appeared in this world was to answer the prayers of Brahma, because Brahma, along with all the demigods, he had approached Kshirodakshai Vishnu. He was standing at the border of the Shvetadip ocean, where Kshirodakshai Vishnu is residing, and then he's praying to, because of the immoral activities, the injustices of Kamsa, Brahma and all the demigods, they approached Kshirodakshai Vishnu for asking him to come down to the material world and to protect them. So then Krishna is personally manifesting. So Krishna had previously answered the prayers of Brahma and the other demigods who had requested the Lord to descend within this universe for the protection of his servants, the demigods. Now the demigods arrived before the Lord, each one desiring to take the Lord to his own planet. This is very interesting. So when Krishna is going back, he's planning to go back to the spiritual world. So all the demigods, they are expecting that Krishna will come to their abode for some time, for some moments, and he will grace their abode and all that. So all of them are expecting like this. So that's why it is mentioned that Krishna closes his eyes, right? If you remember, Sukadeva Goswami mentioned that when all the demigods have assembled, so Krishna will close his eye, and then it appears that he's meditating, but he actually wanted to avoid going to the house of all these demigods. So he closed his eye, so that no one will think that, okay, the Lord is giving me some indication or something like that. So in order to avoid all these innumerable social obligations, the Lord closed his eyes as if absorbed in samadhi. So Jiva Goswami adds further that Lord Krishna closed his eyes to instruct the yogis how to leave this mortal world without attachment to one's mystic opulences. That's another interesting point, because see, it is also mentioned that the Lord, without employing the Agnya process of meditation, he actually immediately departed from this world. So without employing the mystic Agnya meditation to burn his transcendental body. So generally what yogis do, they actually burn up their transcendental body and then they leave this world. Burn up their body and then they leave this world. So all the demigods, including Brahma, are mystic expansions of Lord Krishna, and yet the Lord closed his eyes to emphasize that one should fix one's mind on the Lord when departing from this world. That's another lesson that we have to learn. And so basically, a yogi empowered to select the moment of leaving his body can cause it to burst into flames by engaging in the yogic meditation called Agniya, and thus he passes into his next life. So the demigods, similarly employ this mystic fire when being transferred to the spiritual world. But Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely different from conditioned souls, like the yogis and the demigods. Since the Lord's eternal spiritual body is the source of all existence. And Srila Vishwanath Thakur reminds of Lord Krishna's statement in the 11th canto, chapter 14, verse 37, where Krishna says that Vani Madhya Smare Rupam Mamanita Dhyana Mangalam. Within the fire, one should meditate upon my form, which is the auspicious object of all meditation. So, since Lord Krishna's transcendental form is present within the fire as the maintaining principle, how can fire affect that form? So, that's another interesting point by Vishwanath Thakur. So, thus, although the Lord appeared to enter the mystic yoga trance, the word Adagva indicates that the Lord, since his body is purely spiritual, bypassed the formality of burning the body and directly enter into his own abode in the spiritual sky. Now, Srila Vishwanath Thakur says that it should be understood that when the Lord appeared on earth, the associates of these Vishnu forms also appeared amongst the Yadus along with their masters, the various Vishnu forms. These associates returned to their places along with their respective Vishnu forms, and Krishna departed from this world. Then he also says that having dispatched the Devatas to Swarga, he did not desire to remain visible on earth with his associates. In other words, he desired to disappear. Why? What is the use of this material world for the Lord? He did not care for the material world, but he cared for Swargaloka. By the request of those on Swarg, such as Brahma, the Lord appeared in this mortal world, and at their request alone, he went to Vaikuntha. This is the implication of statement. He made known his going to Vaikuntha to Brahma and others situated in Swarga and other planets. He did not want to encourage people in the future to loiter here unnecessarily. In other words, as soon as possible, one should perfect one's Krishna consciousness and go back to Godhead. If Lord Krishna had remained longer on the earth, he would have unnecessarily increased the prestige of the material world. Beautiful. So if Krishna would have remained in the material world for a longer period of time, people would have taken the material world for granted. They would have, taken example of Lord Krishna enjoying the material world, and so use it as their own enjoyment, example of enjoyment like that. So that's why Krishna set a very clear example that we have to go away from this material world. Then Vishwanath Thakur says the portions of the eternal associates, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and others, had previously gone to Dwarka to Prabhas. Portions of Devki, Rohini, and other eternal associates then went to Prabhas on hearing the news. The main portions of Devki and others remained in Dwarka, not visible to the eyes of common people. And he also explained that this description of Vasudeva and Devki giving up their lives and wives of the Yadavas entering the funeral pyre should be explained to be superficial and not actual fact. So it is understood that the anguished seat described here is a display of the Lord's illusory potency, adding a final dramatic note to Krishna's pastime on the earth. In reality, Lord Krishna returned to his eternal abode in his original body, and his eternal associate returned with him. This final heartbreaking scene of the Lord pastime is a creation of the Lord's internal potency that brings the Lord manifest pastimes to a perfect dramatic end. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, Arjun remembered, because we know that Arjun consoled himself. So Sridhar Swami says that he remembered these particular verses from the Bhagavad Gita, and he remembered this verse: Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yoga Maya Samavrita Mudo Ayam Nabijanati Lokamam Ajam Avyayam. 7th chapter, 25th verse. And then he also remembered the 18th chapter, 65th verse. So Mam Immersion Satyante Pratijana Priyosime. Okay, so these two verses Arjuna remembered to console himself. And then Jiva Goswami explained that whereas the material external manifestation of the Lord abode was covered by the ocean, the Lord's eternal Dwarka exists beyond the material universe and certainly beyond the material ocean. Dwarka had been constructed by Vishwakarma, the architect of the demigods, and the Sudharma assembly hall and had been brought from the heaven. In that city, there were many beautiful and splendorous residences of the aristocratic Yadu dynasty and the most beautiful residence of that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Jiva Goswami mentions that even in modern age, people who live near the site of original Dwarka, sometimes they catch a glimpse of it in the ocean. So I think this is something that is also verified by few people. And ultimately, the Lord associates and abode are eternal. And one who understands this is qualified to fully become Krishna conscious. And at the end, Vishwanath Thakur explains that the Lord's palace was spared. As the next word states, the Lord is eternally present there. This statement is the view of the Lord, who is present in the palace in unmanifest pastimes, not the view of the common people. This is how some explain that the palace remained. Others explain that the ocean flooded Dwarka, but not the palaces of the Yaduvas, to show how everything except the Lord is temporary. Okay, so with this, we also conclude the commentary of the Acharyas for the last chapter of the 11th canto, the Disappearance of Lord Krishna. Right, so any comments or questions now?
So when we say Lord's palace is spared, which palace are we referring to? Do we have access to that palace?
Yeah, so see, if you remember, I had given a class about the uh, the different types of Vrindavan. You remember? I don't think you were there for the class, but if you have seen the class, then actually the different categories of Vrindavan is that one is Goloka, then one is Bhoma Vrindavan, then another one is uh, Drishyaman Vrindavan, right? Drishyaman. And I will explain to you what is the meaning of Drishyaman. And then there is the Vrindavan which is manifested in the heart of a devotee, Vrindavan which is also manifested externally by the devotion of a pure devotee, right? So these are all like different types of Vrindavan. Like for example, Jaipur is also not different from Vrindavan, because uh, the kings who were pure devotees of the Lord, they manifested Vrindavan in Jaipur. So it is considered to be not different from Vrindavan. Like for example, Govardhan Eco Village. Like for example, New Vrindavan in US. So a pure devotee, they desire that Vrindavan should be created here, and that place becomes Vrindavan. So that is Vrindavan. Now, what is the difference between these Vrindavans and the actual Vrindavan in material world as well as spiritual world? So these things I had explained in that class, and I told that the other types of Vrindavan, they are manifested and they are equal to the same Vrindavan as long as there is pure devotion going on. Okay, that's the other types of Vrindavan. But the Vrindavan which is in the material world, it is a very special type of Vrindavan. Why? Because irrespective of any kind of pure atmosphere, that Vrindavan always remains pure. So because it has been touched by the dust of the lotus feet of Krishna, so that Vrindavan remains always pure. So whether you perform devotional activity or not perform, it will never be contaminated. It is always transcendental. And just by movements of contact with that particular abode, one is surcharged spiritually. But not the case with other Vrindavans, where there has to be pure devotion going on. It should be maintained. Okay. So this is, and then Goloka and Bhoma Vrindavan, what is the difference? There is no difference at all, except that in Bhoma Vrindavan, there are some demons. Krishna is also growing in age, right? And then there are conditions for participating in the pastimes of the Lord, which is unlike in Goloka. So these are some differences, but then similarity is that the potency is the same. You know. So now, talking about all these different kinds of Vrindavan, there is the third type of Vrindavan, which is called a Drishyaman Vrindavan. Now, what is the Drishyaman Vrindavan? Drishyaman Vrindavan is the Vrindavan that you actually can perceive with your material eyes as a sadhaka, as right away. You know, when you go to Vrindavan, you are seeing Nidhivan, you are seeing Seva Kunj, you are seeing the Rasla Stali, Vamshivat, you are seeing certain pastime places of the Lord, like Govardhan is also there. So that's the original Govardhan. It is not something which is the replica. It is the original Govardhan that Krishna lifted. So there are remnants of Vrindavan remaining in the material world, still remaining in the material world, which you can directly perceive with the material eyes. This is called Drishyaman Vrindavan. And then Vrindavan, which is even beyond the material eyes, which is covered. And that covering can only be uncovered when you reach the stage of bhava and prema, when you are completely purified in a pure devotional service to the Lord. So that time you can actually perceive the Vrindavan as it is. So Drishyaman Vrindavan is that portion of Vrindavan which you see with your material eyes. So this is what it is talking about. So when we talk about the palace of Lord Krishna, it is unmanifested actually, and no material element can actually contaminate that, or it can subdue it. It is completely unmanifested state, so you cannot perceive it with your material eyes. But then there are certain remnants of that palace which you can still see now. That's why Jiva Goswami says that there are still some people who have witnessed in the ocean. Some remnants are still present of the Lord. And in fact, Jiva Goswami also mentions this very interesting point that because he takes the example of the Sudharma assembly hall. So he says that this assembly hall was taken from the heavenly planet, from Indra's abode, and it was manifested by Vishwakarma in Dwarka. So when Krishna disappeared, this Sudharma assembly hall went back to Swarga. It was reinstated there. Okay, that's why we cannot see that because whatever things are coming from the heavenly planets, they all go to heavenly planet. Whatever is, and some leftovers may be there. But the original assembly hall, it went back to the Swarga, like that. So even the the material from the heavenly planets, they also do not get influenced by earthly planet. They are also not, they are also beyond that. So what to speak of the Lord's original abode? Yeah, like his own palace, which was created by his own personal potency. It was not manifested by Vishwakarma. Vishwakarma is a demigod who is trying to serve the Lord. He is also presenting some gifts to the Lord by his architectural skills. But actually, the abode of the Lord is his own personal potency. Like it is a Sandhi manifestation of the Sandhi Shakti of the Lord. Yeah. So, any other question, comment?
So, I think you've also completed the class duration time. Have we completed this chapter, the topics you wanted to cover, or is there going to be another class on this issue, on this topic?
Your voice is breaking slightly. So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was asking Prabhuji, have you fully completed this topic, or you're going to be taking another class on this? Is there anything still balanced to be discussed, to be elaborated?
Oh yeah. I think we are done. Yeah. About the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, we are done. So part 1, part 2, both are over now. And yeah, I think I've covered all the details. I don't think there is anything remaining, unless if you have any questions or comments. So what I would suggest for those who have missed first part of the class, they should hear that class, and then they also refer to this class again. So then they will get a complete picture of the entire past tense of the Lord.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so in order to overcome the impersonal tendency, the Mayavad tendencies, the imitation tendencies of a jiva, in order to also establish the fact that one cannot offend my pure devotee, and in order to establish that familiarity breeds contempt, the more you become familiar with the Lord, the more you also take him for granted, and then you start equating with him. So in order to curb down all these mentalities and tendencies, the Lord, it's amazing, because in one sense, if you say that this entire thing was illusion, then we cannot learn any lesson from it. See, the entire reason for this particular pastime mentioned in the Bhagavatam, which is actually the Amala Puran, the ultimate authority on all the scriptures. Now, if you take it as it is, if you take the entire episode as it is, then one may think that, well, Vaishnavas are saying that Bhagavatam is the ultimate authority. So how can Bhagavatam be wrong? So Bhagavatam is conveying the actual thing. They can say like that. But then Bhagavatam, it may convey something, but we have to also understand what is the hidden meaning of that. Like, for example, Bhagavatam also speaks about Krishna promoting the philosophy of karma mimamsa. Right? He is also trying to convince Nand Maharaj and all the Vrajvasis that you don't have to worship any demigod. Just follow karma, just do karma, and everything will happen automatically. So, is this real philosophy? I mean, Krishna also says that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the source of all avatar. And then he's the one who is maintaining everyone. He's the absolute controller. So then we have to see all other statements of the Bhagavatam, not just focus on a particular set of statements in the Bhagavatam. So now that's why our Acharyas, they also quote evidences from Bhagavatam in order to counteract the view of others. Like, for example, Krishna Thakur was also quoting that they did counteract the curse. That itself proves that whatever is described, that the entire pastime was illusion, he is actually proving that by quoting statements from the Vedic scriptures, from the Srimad Bhagavatam also. And then he is also quoting his commentary, he does quote many statements from the Upanishad as well, from the Puranas, proving that the form of the Lord is actually transcendental. It is not material, which I have not shared. Obviously, we don't have to go in the details of that. But in that, actually, in the commentary, Vishwanath Thakur shares a lot of verses from scriptures, proving that Krishna's body is transcendental. So it was an illusion, definitely, for those who are attracted to the Lord, his pastimes, devotees of the Lord. For them, definitely they will be convinced that it was an illusion, because the Lord is very merciful. He cannot destroy his own dynasty like that. And then obviously, see, now it's very interesting. In the entire sequence of the pastime, especially in the Bhagavatam, I did not see anything mentioned about the curse of Gandhari. It's not mentioned. Neither I saw the comment in the commentary of Vishwanath Thakur and Jiva Goswami or Sridhar Swami anywhere quoted that Gandhari cursed Krishna, that's why the dynasty got destroyed. It was actually coming from the curse of the sages. And why? Because the family members of Krishna, the younger family members of Krishna, they tried to ridicule them, who were great sages and pure devotees of the Lord. So one thing is very clear, that unless Krishna sanctions, it is not possible to destroy his dynasty. Yeah. So any other comment or question?
So I think it's quite amazing to see how Lord plays out in his Leela so many stories simultaneously at so many levels, giving instructions to people having various tendencies.
Yeah, it's actually inconceivable also to a lot of extent. How the Lord thinks, why he does like that, and then to achieve multiple things at one go. These are all like very inconceivable. I mean, unless you really have the commentary of the Acharyas, you cannot even understand the Lord's pastimes. Like, just subtract the commentaries and you will feel that everything happened like that, what is described in the Bhagavatam. So that's how we understand the greatness of Acharya's contribution. Without the Acharyas, it is not possible to understand any scripture.
So Prabhuji, today's class, the confidential ideas behind what happened, the commentaries of the Acharyas that you mentioned, are these given in the books written by Srila Prabhupada, or have you referred to some other books to give these details?
Yeah, so the first thing is that Prabhupada didn't have a commentary on these verses because he passed away. So he had given commentary only till the chapter 14 of Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't remember the verse number, but later on, then his disciples, they have taken over it and they have given the commentaries, they have shared the commentaries of the Acharyas. And in Krishna book, although Prabhupada because he was able to complete Krishna book. So in Krishna book, he has given commentaries, but it is kind of in a coded form. You have to decode it. And sometimes he has named directly the Acharyas, sometimes he has just given the commentary of the Acharyas, insights from the Acharyas, and he has not named. But this particular pastime is narrated in the 11th canto. So there is no question of Prabhupada's commentary, right? Because in Krishna book also you will find only till the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So there is no commentary of Prabhupada. At some places, Prabhupada has commented, like for example, I have also quoted one particular verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto, where Krishna is saying that the Yadu dynasty can only be destroyed by my sense. It is not because they have drunk wine, or it is not because they are intoxicated, right? So that is appearing in the 3rd canto, and obviously Srila Prabhupada gives some his purport to that. So wherever previously some statements have been mentioned in the Bhagavatam, which are connected to 11th canto pastime of this disappearance of the Yadu, that time Prabhupada has given some commentary, but otherwise most of the Acharyas they have given commentary. And obviously, we also have the books by Acharyas separately. They have commented, so we have those books.
So, but this is all mentioned in the 11th canto of our Srimad Bhagavatam set. There in 11th canto, all this has been discussed.
So not all of them. What disciples of Prabhupada have done is they have given the most important commentaries of the Acharyas.
Okay.
So they have quoted Krishna Chattapur, they have quoted Jiva Goswami, they have quoted Sridhar Swami, they have quoted Sanatan Goswami, they have quoted different Acharyas, and they have given the essential and the most important commentaries of the Acharyas. But then, if you want to know the details of the commentary, then these Acharyas, they have written separately books. So their commentaries on their respective verses is a different thing. The detailed one.
Okay. ठीक है, so thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful class. It's worth listening to twice. Surely, there's so much information in this. Yes, it was very interesting. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So I think now when you hear the first part now, then you will get a much deeper perspective.
Right.
And you will be able to connect very well.
Correct. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. Thank you for joining. Thank you all the audience for joining also and giving me opportunity to share. Hare Krishna.